This is Superior Sports Talk with Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
Back at it, back in the lab, Reggie and Luke, another episode, Superior Sports Talk presented by Locked On Sports Minnesota. I got Carol Evans' very own Reggie Wilson with me, so life is good. Hump Day, Reg, Vikings training camp a full go. How you feeling?
Feeling good, man. I'm ready to get out to Eagan and see what they got going on over there.
Yeah, plenty to discuss, like which Viking has the most pressure during the 2022 season, plus ranking the top 5 Vikings games on the 2022 schedule. It's all coming up on Superior Sports Talk. Remember, follow along on the Locked On Minnesota YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, and on Twitter, smash the follow button at Locked On MIN. All right, to football we go. 48 days. We're getting there. Week 1 of the NFL season kicks off. And that means training camp is a full go, officially underway for all 32 NFL teams, and not just the rookies. No. The veterans have arrived. The full 90-man roster is live and in action. You see them on Instagram all pulling up with their sick new whips. Danielle Hunter's got to have the best, coolest car collection that I've seen of this roster, by the way. Kwesi and KOC took the podium at TCO and Eagan yesterday. Couple news and notes. First and foremost, outside of Ryan Connolly, the pride of Eden Prairie, Minnesota native, local legend, stand up and shout, and receiver Blake Proehl, coaches do not expect any other players to arrive on the PUP list once everyone has shown up and gone through their medical checks. That's huge because that means Irv Smith and Andrew Booth Jr. full go, ready to rumble, and even guys like Amir Smith-Marset and Johnny Munt got the green light. We've talked all offseason how vital it was for both these guys to get into camp, start this process out on a positive, healthy note. Reggie, quick thoughts on the importance and impact of having these two guys at full speed for the start of training camp.
Yeah, man, it's very important. You know, it's interesting because there's so much hype and so much excitement around this team, not just externally but internally. You know, Kwesi, KOC, Harrison Smith, Dalvin Cook all spoke yesterday, and they were just talking mostly about how excited they are to get going. You know, a lot of quotes made the rounds when Harrison Smith was asked about being the old guy, the elder statesman, if you will. But crazy to think he's the longest tenured Viking at this point, going into his 11th season.
Wow.
But yeah, I know.
The wily vet, the crafty vet, Harrison Smith, finally taking on that role. Incredible.
Yeah, he feels like he has plenty left. I mean, he's only 33 years old, so I mean that's not like terribly old. It's just,
and safety's a position where you see some guys, if they're elite players, they can play well, not just play, but play well up into their mid to late 30s for sure.
Exactly. So I think, you know, I'm looking forward to just seeing how this goes. Kwesi was talking about how, you know, Kevin O'Connell is already in like mid-season mode with all the things that he's planning and all the adjustments that he's making as far as like game planning and all of that good stuff. And he was saying, like, you know, as a friend, he's, you know, looking forward to KOC just kind of getting this first opportunity to lead the team and to really kind of put his stamp on things. And you can just tell that KOC is kind of coming to training camp really no nonsense, you know, not a lot of smiles and giggles and all that. Like, he's ready to go. And so I'm interested to see how that plays out. Talking about Danielle coming back is interesting, man, because he was on a tear last year. It was like, wow, like this is the Danielle that we have come to know last season. And then the pec injury happened, and it was just like, dang, man, like he was humming. Like, you know, last year could have been another double-digit sack season. I think when it comes to ability, it's all there. The dude is an absolute freak. Like, just get him healthy. As long as he's healthy, I think he's going to be a disruptive force. He's one of the most disruptive forces in all of the NFL. But it's just, man, it's just tough. It's just tough because, you know, he's had the back, a neck, you know, injury, whichever one you want to classify it as. And then, you know, that made him miss, you know, pretty much all of that 2020 season, and then he comes back last year and does the peck, and it's just like, dang, man. And you see so much excitement with Za'Darius being on one side and him being on the other, and then them both being able to just cause like havoc for opposing offenses. And you see, like, if you're like a psychic, you're seeing the future, them both meeting at the quarterback, on any given play, and you're just like, wow, this could be so exciting. But you just have to see them out there, man. You want to see them out there, and you want to see them be able to produce from a health standpoint, and that can be scary.
KOC was next on the mic, and he was quick to mention the importance of having Irv and Booth healthy on the roster. He said, we're moving into the competition phase. He's excited to see this team take shape while still trying to stress the fundamentals and technique. I swear, no two other buzzwords get thrown out more in camp than fundamentals and technique. If you're playing training camp buzzword bingo, those might as well just be free spaces because it's a given by it's said by coaches and players 38 times a day during this part of the season as we get into practice and training camp. But in all seriousness, this part of the year is huge for people like us in the media and a lot of the fans because it's going to put us in the minds, in the shoes of this coaching staff when it comes to where they have these guys ranked and favored on the depth chart. Who's got the inside track to start preseason games? Who's on the second team? Who's got the inside track to be the starter week 1 versus the Packers? Who's in those little sub packages, those little wrinkles in Ed Donatell's system? The other big note from KOC was about the padded practices. He said, quote, when we're going, we got to go. When we put those pads on, it's just not that many opportunities for our players to feel prepared. There's no other way than to be a full go and compete. So basically, the NFL lets you have 16 full padded practices, right? Well, coach already came out and said, we're only going to do 11 of them. We're still going to go practice, but when it comes to putting the pads on and going balls to the wall, we're only going to take 11 days instead of 16. But when we go full speed ahead, no messing around, no going 3/4 speed or anything like that. It's 100%. Let's see what everyone's got when we flip that switch on. I thought that was really interesting and a much more fresh approach from, old school 1960s two-a-days, run sprints until you drop from the summer heat, rub some dirt on it, be a man. What do you think, Reg? You like it, or is Coach going a little too soft, sending the wrong message?
Yeah, it's fine. Players talked about how grueling those two-a-days were. And really, it's like, man, what were they doing in those two-a-days that really was just going to set them apart? There were teams back in the day that were doing those two-a-days and still losing 13 games.
Right.
So what exactly did those two-a-days help? You know what I mean? So if anything, it's just more work that is putting on the body. And these players, especially as they get older, they don't even care to do a whole lot of that at training camp. They're like, look, I conditioned my body, over the summer. Like, I just need a few reps, mental reps, and I'm ready to go. Like, give me some game action in the preseason, and I'm ready to go. Like, this is go time. And I think what's tough about it is, like, the more padded practices you have, the more, like, risk for injury that you can have. And this guy is coming in, new job. I'm talking about KOC, and really wanted to put his stamp on this program. And if you go all 16 and, maybe by the 14th, 15th, 16th practice, like, those guys are gassed. And now all of a sudden when you're fatigued, that's when injuries can happen. That's when we see it happen the most. And now you're losing some of your best players for the start of the season because you just wanted to, we were going to get after it. All 16, we're using all 16. And I think, the smartest coaches know how to push and know how to pull back. And I think KOC has had a lot of people that he's studied under, whether it's, Coach Gruden in Washington, Shanahan in San Francisco, McVay in Los Angeles. Like, he's had guys that he has learned under, even as a player, he's learned under several coaches in the NFL. I think he knows what works and what doesn't, and I think he's going to, push this team in the direction that he believes is the best way to put them in position to succeed come week 1. And I have no problems with that because, look, 11, that's still a lot, man. And he's still, if he says that they're going to go, I believe him. And if he can put together his stamp and really do what he needs to do to get his install in there for plays and packages and all that stuff and do it in 11, I believe him. And then, when it comes to the practices before or after those 11, it's going to be the reps, the mental reps. And, a lot of this is mental with these guys because they're learning a system that they haven't played in, for the first time. And so I think this is a good thing for him. The whole he's being too soft, he's being a player's coach. No, I think he knows what he's doing.
I covered Viking training camp for 6 years. It's another thing when it's in the dog days of summer. I'm telling you, I was standing out there all day for 3 weeks straight, just standing there as a media member, and that heat is grueling. You get home by the end of the day and you're shot, let alone these football players practicing going 2-a-days, grueling regiments of obviously putting the pads on and going balls to the wall like that. It's grueling, man. It's one thing for rookies and young players to start really digesting that playbook and getting out on the field, getting those mental reps. But for these vets especially, you just don't need to put that wear and tear on these guys' body. They already mentally know what they're doing. They know these basic kind of installs. So I'm with you on that. Vikings odds to win it all, by the way, 40-1. Put your bet down today with BetOnline. BetOnline, your number one source for all your betting needs, stats, news, info. BetOnline makes betting easy. Go to betonline.net today to learn more. That's betonline.net, where the game starts. Last one as we wrap up. ESPN came out with a list of 20 players with the most to prove. Guys like Lamar Jackson with the contract. Mekhi Becton, he was a top 5 pick for the Jets, been injured every year. Zeke Elliott. Josh McDaniels, new head coach for the Raiders. No Vikings on the list, though, Reg. But if you had to pick one, who's got the most pressure? It could be a player, a coach, the GM. Who's got the most pressure for this season on this 90-man roster or this coaching staff as we sit here today?
The most pressure. I don't know that anyone really has a whole, if you're talking about the most, then maybe it's KOC just because, this team is loaded.
And a lot of expectations, right?
Yeah. And I think he feels that, and I think he knows that, and he's trying to hit the ground running as hard as he can. And I you know what? I actually think he's going to do a good job with this. I think he is. One of the things that I had as a critique on Zach Taylor when I was in Cincinnati is it just seemed that he was kind of stubborn. It was just like, look, I'm doing things that I believe in. This is my approach, and I believe this is what, gets us to the success that I'm looking for. And, had a lot of guys that, if they opposed him, then maybe they weren't necessarily good for the team. And look, in year 3, it ended up working out. They caught fire and, ended up making that run to the Super Bowl. So in his mind, he's like, look, I trusted my guns and I did what I had to do. What I think is interesting about what KOC did is he brought a lot of guys in with a lot of experience, because that to me shows that is a guy that, although he knows a lot, he doesn't know it all. And I think when you bring in guys like Ed Donatel, to do the defense. I remember when Sean McVay was in Los Angeles, one of his first hires was hiring Wade Phillips, a guy that had been a head coach before, a guy that had, he was an architect of a Super Bowl, just menacing defense. You remember what that Broncos defense did to Cam Newton in the Super Bowl several years ago. He had been there, done that, walk the walk, talk the talk. And just the legendary, blood that he had in him as well, with Bum Phillips being his dad and all that good stuff. I think that was a critical hire for him. And then now when you talk about KOC coming in, and, he's got, all these guys coming in, guys like Mike Smith and Ed Donatel, and, he's got an assistant coach defense as well. Like, he's bringing all these guys with all these different, experience. And he was the coach of the Browns, the head coach of the Browns at one point. Like, he's got some guys that are in there that are going to help him. And that seems to signal to me that he's not all in on just my way or the highway type of an approach. Like, he understands that there's still so much that he has to learn and so many guys that he's going to have to lean on, because as head coach, your brain is just in a lot of different places.
Right.
And that just kind of frees him up to do what maybe he feels like he does best. And so that kind of helps take some of the pressure off a little bit. When it comes to like player pressure, I look at guys like Kirk Cousins, again, this offense and this team is going to go as far as he leads them. He needs to take that next step forward to help lead this offense to the levels that Kevin O'Connell thinks that they can achieve. They have all the pieces there. They have all the weapons. Can he get them over the top with that offense so that they can actually win some games and win some meaningful games this year? And then the guy that's snapping the ball to him. The Vikings decided that they were not going to extend the option to Garrett Bradbury, so now he's playing for a new contract and just playing for his worth, trying to prove himself. There's a lot of pressure that goes with that as well. Doesn't necessarily have like the guys behind him like a Mason Cole like he did last year that are gonna kind of challenge him. Maybe he's got to what are you doing? Looking over his shoulder a little bit. Like, that's not there. So, like, this is his job. And it's just like, all right, time to put up or shut up. Like, let's see what you can do. But when it comes to pressure, I don't necessarily think it's like that heightened. But KOC, Cousins, Bradbury, I look at those guys.
You could make a strong case for that triangle of authority from Kwesi at the top to his first hire, KOC, as you mentioned, to his pupil, KOC's pupil, Kirk Cousins. Any one of them makes sense. Obviously, when you kind of drop down a tier into other kind of specific players, Garrett Bradbury makes sense. I was thinking about Patrick Peterson because he's going to be asked to be the number one corner, and that's a lot of pressure in the NFL in this pass-happy league. You're going to be facing a ton of talent, and we know Patrick Peterson's pedigree. We know the name brand value, but is he still that Patrick Peterson we're used to? We're going to find out here this year. Everybody assumes we're getting the old Patrick Peterson.
Right.
And I just don't know if that's the case. Eventually, these legs are going to start to wear out a little bit. We'll find out. There you go. A little training camp primer to get some healthy debate going. We want to hear from you. Go comment on the YouTube channel. Let us know what you think. 49 days until week 1 of the NFL season. Viking training camp officially underway. Rest assured, Reggie, Sam, Ron, and I got you covered every step of the way, every day on Locked On Minnesota Network. All right, to baseball we go. Twins lost a close one last night in Milwaukee, 7-6 in the 9th inning on a sac fly. They dropped to 2-1 to start the second half. Worst case scenario with Cleveland and Chicago both getting dubs last night. Buxton homered to start the game at leadoff with no Luis Ariz. Miguel Sano took his first at-bat, I don't know if you saw that, to the warning track, about 6 feet away from a bomb shot. Dylan Bundy had a tough outing, 4 innings, 7 hits, 5 earned. Urshela had a 3-run bomb. He's just 2 RBIs behind Buxton, which is kind of wild.
Wow.
And, of course, Jose Miranda added 2 RBIs. Guy is just on fire. Quick thoughts, takeaways from last night.
How about that? That's my quick takeaway.
That's what you got. In-depth, deep analysis.
So here's my thing. Like, they put our favorite guy in there, Duffy, to try to get out of there. High leverage situation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he had a little bit of a break. The All-Star break got a little bit of a reprieve, a little respite. And then it happened. And look, you can blame him. You don't have to. Joe Smith comes in, can't protect that 1-run lead after Urshela hits that bomb. He gives up an absolute no-doubter to Colton Wong and ties the game at 6. And you're just like, dang, man. And against teams like the Brewers, you got to put them away if you're going to put them away, because they're a good team. Like, they are leading the NL Central for a reason. Like, they got some dudes over there. And I think when you get a chance to beat a team like this, you got to do it, because this is not a team that is going to roll over. This is not a team that is going to stop fighting. And we saw that last night. And I saw a tweet, and I agree with this. Nobody can look at this, including the Twins' upper management. Nobody can look at this team and think that this team is going to go far because of the pitching.
No, you're right.
We saw Yohan Duran get out of that jam last night. He was in a jam. And thank God the umpire, was
feeling frisky,
looking at the ball like all the way in, because he totally crossed up Gary Sanchez on that strikeout call to end the inning, to get out of that bases loaded jam. And it was fine. It was like, okay, cool. Woo. Okay, cool. And then, only for, Joe Smith to come in and give up that game tying home run. It's just, that whole thing is just the Smith, that home run happened beforehand.
Right.
Yohan actually helped them keep it at 6-6, I should say. And then for them to come in the ninth inning and then lose that lead, it's just like, come on, man, like holding on by like paper clips, chewing gum, tissue paper. Like that's how they're holding on by a thread. And if I'm Rocco, I'm just like, what else do I do? Like, he's trying out there, but it's just like they need some help with the pitching, because a game like last night, that 3-run bomb from Urshela, like that should have been the difference. Like that should have been good enough to win the game. All you need is the guys to come in for 2-3 innings, close it down, and they can't do it. And that is frustrating, man. They have to do something. They have to make a move.
That's frustrating, but what's more depressing than frustrating is the fact that Twins fans and the coaching staff, they're just used to it by now. I hate to say they expect it, but we've just seen it time and time again. And you start the second half out 2-0, come out on a high note, start fresh, look good, and then here we go, back to it. It's like copy and paste. We've seen this movie over and over again. Trade deadline coming up. I know the Twins want that World Series jewelry. You can too with Blue Nile jewelry. Blue Nile, make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On Plus. Every order insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever peace. Go to BlueNile.com today. Yeah, Twins quick turnaround in an afternoon game today. First pitch 1:10. Today, Chris Archer's on the mound, taking on a stud, Corbin Burns. Reggie and I will be back here tomorrow to break it all down. All right, time has come. My new favorite segment's here. I'm not putting Reggie on the normal hot seat today with what does it mean, but we are going to rip through our top 5 rankings instead with the top 5 most anticipated games on the Vikings 2022 schedule. Let's jump right into it. Vikes have 3 primetime games, including a game in London. Let's start at number 5 and work our way down. I'll kick it off. Number 5 on my list. It's week 1. Home opener against the Green Bay Packers. Now, I will say this, Reggie, normally this would be a lot higher if it was later in the season, and obviously they all count the same in the wins and losses column at the end of the year, but not quite the normal buildup we're used to. Still, always one of the best games on the schedule, though, every season. Going to be a lot of fun to see them go blow for blow right at the gate. KOC's very first game versus A-Rod and Matt LaFleur at home. Place will be absolutely rocking. That's my number 5 on the list. Reggie, who you got at number 5?
Stop taking my stuff, man.
Copy paste, same 5. Thing. Really? I thought you would have that 5. A little higher. Vikings home game against Packers.
I got some plans.
Okay, you got some plans. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we're all tied up. Number 5. All right. Cross that one off both our lists. Number 4 on the list. We go to week 2, back-to-back, 1 and 2, starting off the season bang, bang, because it's prime time in Philly. Something always special about seeing your team, not just on prime time, but on Monday Night Football. They travel to Philly to break the curse, shake off those nightmares from the 2017 NFC Championship game. Kirk versus Jalen Hurts under the bright lights. Vikes will be coming off a tough game, as we know, against the Packers, and now travel to Philly on the road, outdoors, on grass. This is huge for me, and this is why this is on in my top 5, number 4, because Kirk can shake off the haters that say he can't win these primetime games early in the season. This would be huge for him to kind of shake that stereotype this early in the season and give him a little breathing room versus critics and gain a ton of trust and confidence from the fan base with a win here. Reggie, who's your number 4 on the list?
My number 4 is the Dallas Cowboys game, Week 11.
I like that.
So last season was an embarrassment. You talk about that prime time. Like, I don't know what the heck that was last year on prime time. Halloween, it was just like, what are we watching here? What are we doing? They let a backup quarterback go in there and game them like that. Like, I have no idea what they were doing last year against the Cowboys. Like, there was no way that they should have lost that game with no Dak Prescott playing against them. Like, what the heck even happened? Like, they got to redeem themselves. They're playing against the Cowboys again at home next season, November 20th. We'll see if that game gets flexed or not to prime time again. But November 20th, going against the Cowboys, got to redeem themselves.
Love it. Number 3 for me, at Buffalo to take on the 2022 Super Bowl champions, because everybody's already crowned this Bills team the winners in Vegas. Ton of money on the Bills already. Look, it's the toughest game on the schedule. Most talented team they'll face on the road in November. It's going to be cold. It's going to be windy. You're facing one of the most electric young QBs in the league who burned you a few years ago his rookie year. He jumped over Anthony Barr for a first down. Bills came in week 2 against the Vikings at the bank and absolutely embarrassed them. And oh yeah, you're also going to see Stephon Diggs for the first time against his former team. You know he's going to throw the Moss hand up all day, be barking for the ball. Throw me the ball, Josh. Vikes will probably be 5 to 6 point underdogs, if not even more, but I'd love to see them versus the best competition because we say it all the time. If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. I want to know where they're at on this litmus test. A great test for them. A great way to start kind of the second half of their season. Number 3, who you got?
Number 3 for me, the New England Patriots on Thanksgiving. You know, it's going to be a quick turnaround because they play the Cowboys 4 days earlier, and then they get the Patriots in prime time on Thanksgiving. Oof. And that's going to be a tough matchup going against Belichick. Like, the cool thing about some of these matchups that I'm naming is they're going to be at home. And so they're going to be at US Bank Stadium on Thanksgiving in prime time. Like, if you're going to exercise some demons, like, that'll be a good time to do it because that Patriots team is going to be much improved. We were just talking yesterday, Mac Jones is not going to have a designated offensive coordinator for this season. That's weird. I don't know how that's going to work, but, you know, whoever they're going to have calling plays, God bless them. But Bill Belichick, you always trust in him, and that's a game that has the potential to get ugly if they don't, you know, do what they're supposed to do. Nobody has time for Kirk Cousins to not show up on prime time. And I think, you know, being that Kirk Cousins is in an offense and playing for a guy who is an offensive-minded guy, I think there are going to be not as many lulls in his performance that you would hope anyway. And I think that's going to help them in that primetime matchup. But that's going to be a big one on Thanksgiving.
No, you're absolutely right. This was my honorable mention, number 6 on my list. Couldn't find a spot for it, but I wanted to on Thanksgiving, as you mentioned. And that short turnaround time scares the heck out of me when you got a coach like Bill Belichick.
But they don't have to leave home, so that's good.
That's huge. That's huge for that road team to have to travel on short rest. Absolutely love it. Number 2 for me, cheerio, mate. Pack your bags. We're going to London.
Yeah.
Fish and chips, some tea and crumpets. Have you met the Queen yet, Reg? Week 4. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the New Orleans Saints.
That accent was horrible, by the way.
That's my Alfred, man. Come on, baby. Rise and grind, Reg. Get your workout in early so you can sit down and catch this one. 8:30 a.m. Vikes 2-0 in London already with wins over Big Ben and the Steelers and the Browns just a few seasons ago. Hoping to keep the streak alive. I love it. Number 2, who you got?
Yeah, that's my number 2 as well. I think they're going to hope that Jameis is going to throw them a lot of interceptions that day, you know, and that's just tough, man. That 8:30 a.m. is no joke, you know, and, you know, players have jet lag and, you know, all that stuff that goes into playing over in London. It's good that they get there, you know, earlier so they can kind of get acclimated to the feel and get comfortable and all that stuff. I wish I was going to London with them, but, you know, maybe next time. But that should be an exciting game, a fun game. Everybody's going to be watching, those who will be up anyway. And it's always fun for me when you can get up in the morning and football is already on and you just got football for the rest of the day. And it's also good for us because it's just like, you know, the game is over. By the time we get on our shows, we can talk about what happened. We can break it all down. And so that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that game. That should be an exciting one over across the pond.
I don't know what you're talking about. That was a great British accent. I don't know what you're talking about, man. Crikey.
You're crazy. You're out of your mind.
Number one, drum roll, please. Number one on the list. Week 17 playoff implications on the line. Division title up for grabs. Crossing the border, over the river, through the woods we go. Lambeau Field. Now, why I have this road game higher than the home game, you might ask, is because there's something special for me about knowing you can ruin 81,000 Packer fans' day, their entire week actually, by going into their house and stealing a victory, taking a dub from them on their home turf. You obviously love to get them at home, but when you can steal one on the road in Lambeau versus Rodgers and company and put some salt in the mouth of those cheese curd loving Packer fans, for me and my money, nothing sweeter, man. Any given year, this is always the one I circle first. When are we playing at Lambeau versus the Green Bay Packers? This is the one I'm most jacked up about and spoiling Packer Country's day. Reggie, your number one game on the schedule you're most amped up about for this 2022 season?
Number one, baby. No one circles the wagon like the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, buddy.
You're on the road. Buddy. It's going to be cold. It's in November. Like, this is going to be a tough. When you talk about the toughest games on the schedule, this is the toughest one on the schedule.
No doubt.
Everybody's picking the Bills to be a Super Bowl contender, maybe Super Bowl favorite in some people's eyes. Like, this is the game. If you're like, okay, look, where are we as a franchise? Where are we as a team? You're like 3/4 of a way through the season, just about at that point. KOC's like, okay, where am I right now as a head coach? What are we doing with this team? That's going to be the real barometer for them. That's going to be the test. Like, can they compete with this team? Trying to pull down Josh Allen. Harrison Phillips goes from being able to play with him to play against him. You mentioned Stephon Diggs coming back. Not coming back, but playing against his old team. He's going to be juiced up. Like, Kirk Cousins is going to have to run from Von Miller. Like, that's going to be a tough matchup. Like, and when you look at the Vikings, like, they do have the talent to keep up and compete, but do they have what it takes to beat this team? Like, we just don't know, man. The Bills could mess around and upset the Rams in week 1. Like, this team is loaded. They were that close.
Yeah,
they were that close to beating Kansas City last year.
Right. Absolutely.
Like, this team is scary. This team is dangerous, and they're only getting better, I think. And that's going to be a tough game for the Vikings. That, to me, is the number one game by far.
Number 3 on my list for a reason. I get it. Litmus test. Where are we at right now? We got all the talent, but where are we at against the NFL's best elite competition? They may be a full touchdown point underdogs by the time they get there. We'll see. The Bills, by the way, they're on the road week 1 against the Super Bowl champion Rams, and they're favored. So you're telling me that the Super Bowl champions are playing at home week 1 and are home dogs? That's crazy. That just tells you how much money's being thrown on these Buffalo Bills. But there you have it. Fun slate of games, no doubt, to get amped up for in 2022. It all starts in training camp first, though. Reggie's going to be there today. We'll be back tomorrow to share all his news and notes. That's a wrap today. Back here tomorrow, breaking down more Vikings, Twins, plenty more. Remember, like, rate, review, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and join us every day for another episode covering all the biggest topics in Minnesota sports. He's Reggie Wilson. Follow him on Twitter at Reggie Wilson TV and on Care 11. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Tune in tomorrow to Superior Sports Talk, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. For Reggie, I'm Luke. Until tomorrow, signing out.
Be blessed. Spread love today.
This is Superior Sports Talk with Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota.